from explosive 90-day fights to a dad quietly fighting for his life. Tonight, we're breaking down the heartbreaking passing of Chuck Potthast and the man behind the chaos. I'm your host. This is Paper Highlighter. Smash like, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and let's roll into Remembering Chuck Potthast. 90 Day Fiancé fans woke up to the kind of news we all hoped we'd never hear. Elizabeth's dad, Chuck Potthast, the guy who somehow held that chaotic family together, has passed away at just 64 after a brutal battle with brain cancer. Tonight, I want to walk back through his story with you. Not just the memes and the fights, but the man behind the cameras. His life, his broken but loving family, his cancer journey, and those heartbreaking final days his kids shared with him. Because if you've watched Chuck for years, you know this isn't just another reality TV death. This is the loss of a dad who spent his last chapter begging his kids to stop fighting and love each other while he was still here. So let's start at the beginning of his 90-day journey. When we first met Chuck, he was the slightly awkward, soft-spoken Florida dad who owned the family business, worried about Elizabeth marrying Andrei, but still signed the checks anyway. He helped pay for trips, weddings, houses, even when he didn't totally trust his future son-in-law. On TV, it looked like control, but underneath, it was classic dad energy. Like, if I can't protect you, at least let me support you. Then the drama went nuclear. The infamous Moldovan wedding, Charlie's drunken toast, the backyard brawls, the constant screaming over money and the family business, all of it with Chuck in the middle, clutching his chest, begging everyone to stop. Fans laughed, got annoyed, picked sides between Andrei and the siblings, but if you remember his face in those scenes, he never looked like a man enjoying the chaos. He looked like a dad watching his family split apart in real time. Real life example number 1. Think back to those family therapy scenes, intense sit-downs, where Chuck literally teared up saying all he wanted was peace between his kids. He said he believed his life had been spared for a purpose, and that purpose, in his mind, was getting his children to reconcile. That wasn't a storyline. That was a sick man begging his family to stop turning each other into enemies. Behind the scenes, his health battle was far more serious than many viewers realized. Chuck was first diagnosed with bladder cancer back in 2016. He had major surgery, lived with an ostomy bag, and later shared in an emotional 90-Day Diaries episode that he'd been cancer-free for years, grateful he'd survived long enough to walk his daughters down the aisle and meet his grandkids. But then came the relapse. In recent years, he developed glioblastoma, an aggressive brain cancer with no cure. He underwent a massive surgery in 2025, even posting a video from his hospital bed, thanking fans and trying to stay positive despite everything his body had been through. Real life example number 2, that hospital bed video hit differently. Here was Chuck, thinner, weaker, clearly exhausted, still smiling through the pain, joking about his surgery, and thanking strangers on the internet for praying for him. That's not reality TV Chuck. That's just a dad and a human being clinging to hope and connection in the scariest moment of his life. In the final weeks, fans started seeing heartbreaking posts in 90 Day Fiancé groups, updates that his organs were failing, that he was in his last days, that metastatic cancer was ravaging his body. 2 weeks later, Elizabeth finally shared the news on Instagram. Her sweet, loving, and caring dad had gone to heaven, and the family was completely shattered. Becky wrote that her world had become a place she didn't understand. And here's where the value of his story hits home for us as fans. First, Chuck is a reminder that reality TV villains and heroes are still real people. We rolled our eyes at the Potthast fights, made jokes about the family being thirsty for camera time, and yet the man at the center of it all was quietly fighting cancer, worrying about money, and begging his kids to love each other. His story pushes us to ask, how often do we flatten people into roles and forget what they're really carrying? And second, his life is a warning about time. Chuck spent years trying to mend rifts between Elizabeth, Andrei, Charlie, Jen, Becky, and so much of that time was wasted on grudges, shouting matches, and petty scoring of who deserved more. Now, there are no more chances to sit around his table and try again. If you've got someone in your life you're stubbornly estranged from, Chuck's story quietly asked, are you really okay if the last thing between you is a fight? And third, there's a lesson in how he handled his illness. Even while battling bladder cancer, then brain cancer, he stayed open about his struggle and grateful for the extra years he got. He celebrated walking his daughters down the aisle and meeting his grandkids like those were massive wins, because they were. It's a reminder to celebrate ordinary milestones now, not after some perfect moment that may never arrive. If you've watched this far, you clearly cared about Chuck beyond just the drama. So here's a gentle invite. Take a second today to text someone you love, forgive something small, or tell a parent or child you appreciate them. That's the kind of legacy a dad like Chuck would have wanted. And if you want to keep remembering the real stories behind 90 Day Fiancé, the messy, human, heartbreaking parts the cameras only partially show, you're welcome to stick around this channel. Hit follow or subscribe if you like, and we'll walk through them together.